There was one year one of my best friends was pitching for the University of Texas, and they came to Omaha, and I had gotten like VIP suite tickets through work, and we told him, once you're done playing in the game, come up to the box. And so he came up with his player pass, and they're like, yeah, we can't let you up here. I'm like, he has a player. He was literally pitching down there like 20 minutes ago. He can come up here. And they're like, I'm sorry, there's nothing we can do. We're like, player pass gets you anywhere, I guess, except the box. Suite. Yeah.
That's wild. That is wild.
I'll give you my suite pass, and you can come up here. Give me your player pass, and I'll go hang out in the dugout.
That's the way to do it, right?
Yeah.
Like the trade-off there.
Yeah, I would have done it in a heartbeat.
Right.
Oh, for sure.
Well, welcome back, everybody. We are back after a week off, unintentional week off. I know we kind of said that we were going to do a podcast while I was in Omaha last week, but things happened and plans changed, and I was very tired, so we didn't do one.
We had family plans.
We had family plans.
Ben had to play Uncle Ben.
I did have to play Uncle Ben, but that is a story for another podcast. Tonight, we are more than excited to talk to Jon, and please do not, if I mispronounce your last name, I gave it my best shot. But it's Antonucci?
Very good, sir.
All right, nailed it.
You must have gone on LinkedIn where I do the whole pronunciation guide or something, because nobody. It works really well though when telemarketers call and they're like, "Yeah, I'm here to I need to talk to Jon Antonucci." I'm sorry, he's not around. I'm not
wrong
sure
dude.
who you're trying to call. Is the wrong number.
Barking up the wrong tree there, friend, because nobody by that name lives here. No, but we are super excited to talk to Jon tonight. He is the founder of Servant Minded Leadership. He's got a super great story, but I won't steal his thunder on that one. Yeah, so with that, Jon, I'll just go ahead and let you introduce yourself a little bit more and kind of give the people a background.
Yeah, hey guys, my name is Jon Antonucci, as you said, and tell you my journey has been one that is not the one I would have chosen. I mean, I did choose it, I guess. Responsibility of choice, but not the one that I would have liked to have chosen. If you look back on it, I think we all tend to have those scenarios though, where it's like, oof, man, that is not the way that would have gone if I had been thinking more clearly. But I don't know if you want me to kind of give my entire story right off the rip, or do you want to kind of get into things layer by layer? How do you prefer this? I want to.
Well, let's go. Let's
Go
go
ahead.
layer by layer because I have a lot of questions. Or yeah, I do have a lot of questions. But start with that decision you made when you were 19 that led to a 14-year prison sentence.
Yeah. So at 19 years old, me and three of my friends had the brilliant idea to light a building on fire.
Oh Jesus.
Just some light
it,
arson.
just some light arson.
Yeah.
There's and you know the number one question everyone asks, why would you do that, right? Like that's I know that's the first thing everyone's thinking. And here's the honest answer. I really don't know. Like I can tell you the conversations and I can say, you know, what led up to the events and everything, but just from a very logical perspective, like why would you make that decision? And other than me being a coward, me lacking integrity, and me wanting to be cool instead of doing the right thing, there's really just no reason for me to have participated, or any of us really. I think all of us kind of bounced off of each other, and none of us wanted to be that person. I think if any one of the four of us had said, "This is stupid, I'm not doing this," the other three of us probably would have been like, "Yeah, you know, that's probably not a good idea." But none of
Yeah.
us did that, and so not only did we light the building on fire, but my best friend, who was the one that physically struck the match, did not make it out of the building that he had
Oh my
just
God.
lit alive. Yeah, and
Dang.
so I lost, you know, my best friend, and I also got sentenced to a 14-year prison sentence for that decision.
Damn.
That's
Well, I
rough.
was, yeah,
God.
incredibly sorry to hear about your best friend.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, especially being a 19-year-old boy, you know, and that pack mentality, you know, you do a lot of dumb shit around your friends at 19. That looking back, you're like, what were we thinking? You know,
What were you thinking?
I
Yeah.
I made a lot of decisions that probably would have ended me up in a 14-year prison sentence if I would have gotten caught, you know.
Yeah. Sure.
Um, so the building burned to the ground then, or
Pretty much. So we had this very elaborate and equally dumb plan to like break in through an upstairs window. So it was an office building where all four of us had worked in the past, and myself and my best friend, who was like 9 years older than the rest of us. So he was not only a best friend, he's also kind of the older brother I never had because I'm the oldest. And so he and I were both under investigation in that company. And that's where, if you look at any media coverage, and not that I want any of you or your audience to go give more hits to terrible media coverage on me, but there's plenty of it out there. If you Google my name, there's some pretty tough coverage. And the coverage is all going to say the same basic line, and that was that we were trying to cover up an embezzlement plot. Uh, there was embezzlement. I was not a person of integrity. I absolutely took money I wasn't supposed to, but that had nothing to do with the fire, and there's proof of that because all of the records of my embezzlement were in an attorney's office across town. And I knew that because I was already in contact with the attorney for restitution so that they didn't press charges on that. But that's the media narrative. The narrative was that we were trying to cover up an embezzlement plot and that I manipulated the other three people into helping me, despite the fact that one of us was 9 years older than the other three. So that's kind of the context. It was a building we were all familiar with. We had this idea to go in this upstairs office where there was no cameras or whatever, and then we were going to try to run through the building and sprinkle gasoline throughout. Well, we all got at least a little bit smart and got scared, and kind of in that last minute, we never left that upstairs room, which was good and bad. It meant that we didn't go run through the building. It also means that there was like 15 gallons of gasoline in that one room.
Jeez.
Which is why my best friend didn't make it out, because
Yeah.
you put that much gasoline in an office room.
It's
a
gonna
single
go.
office. So what happened, as best as I can tell, I was not there. I was actually not even there when the fire was physically lit. I got scared to death and started running. I was probably a block to a block and a half away by the time the match was actually struck. But as best as I can tell, based off of media coverage and pictures and things like that, the fire went through the office, went into the roof, and then traveled across and then came down on the warehouse. And that was where most of the damage was done, was in the warehouse, because once it went through the roof, through all the insulation, that stuff started dropping onto all the merchandise in the warehouse.
So you caught 14 years and you weren't even there when the match was struck.
Yeah, so as sucky as that is, I have no one to blame but myself. So there was
Of course, yeah.
one person died, three of us all got arrested. One of us got 4 years, one of us got 7 years, and I got 14. And the reason why I got
Jeez.
so much more boils down to the fact that when we were all brought in for questioning, we all lied. We all lied. We all had our own little alibi, and none of us were smart enough to realize that if our alibi was all exactly the same, that was going to raise some red flags. So we all told the exact same story, and they all came back to us and said, "We think you're full of it. You want to try again?" Well, I tried again by lying some more and just lie,
Yeah.
deny, lie. The guy that was the smartest of the three of us said, "You know what? I think I need a lawyer," and so he lawyered up. And then the other girl, she decided to cooperate, and so with her cooperation, it kind of gave a slam dunk. And I really struggled for a long time with like, why are they making me the worst guy? Like, I understand the lies, I get that, but why is it that they're trying to pin the mastermind role on me? Like, it wasn't my idea. I didn't like the match, all of that. And my attorney said, "Here's the deal, John. When Josh died, he became a victim. He is no longer a perpetrator in the eyes of the state. And so someone needs to take responsibility for what happened and all of the questions that can't be answered. And you positioned yourself very well by lying and lying and lying, and now your credibility is shot, and the girl, her credibility is perfect because said, hey, this is what happened, even if it wasn't necessarily all true. She gave an actual rendition, and the other guy just protected himself by lawyering up. And I don't blame her. If I hadn't done anything wrong, she would have had nothing to tell. I don't blame him. He was probably the smartest of the three of us by just getting a lawyer and shutting up. But that's why I ended up with a 14-year sentence as opposed to more than double one and more than triple the other.
That scapegoat type mentality, and again, that's not taking any sort of guilt away from you in the situation. I'm not trying to do that, and you're very clearly very accepting of the decisions that you made, and not trying to pass any blame. But that is a very true thing when it comes to court cases, especially when someone unfortunately does lose their life. There's got to be that focal point. Somebody's got to take the fall for it, and sounds like you're that guy in this case, unfortunately.
Yeah, and it took me way more time than it should have to understand my own responsibility. I kind of happened in stages, so it really, really ticked some people off when at the beginning of the process, I'm thinking very, very literally in terms of what did I physically do. And what I physically did was help break a window.
Yeah.
And so it's like, guys, I don't know what you're talking about. Murder? Arson? No, maybe criminal damage. Probably more like trespassing and
B&E.
B&E, yeah. There was a vandalism. Vandalism, breaking a window and trespassing, whatever, breaking and entering. So I'm thinking, at most I should be serving a year, maybe 2. And those things come out of my mouth and people are just like, you're a moron. You don't understand what is wrong. You're not remorseful. You're just so full of yourself. And I'm just, as you guys pointed out, a 19, maybe 20-year-old kid by that point, and just trying to wrap my head around. So it happened in stages, and eventually I realized, okay, no, I participated, and so there's a ripple effect responsibility that also belongs to me, and it was probably not for, I'm going to say 5 to 7 years that I recognized the truth that even though I wasn't the mastermind, and even though I didn't strike the match, and blah blah blah, the fact that I have what many people would refer to as like a natural born leader kind of presence or aura or whatever you want to call it, just my presence there does give me more culpability, does actually make it to where I am more responsible than somebody else, not because of my actions per se, not because of any sort of alleged manipulation, which was definitely alleged and was patently false, but the fact that I was there does give me more culpability simply because may not have been the oldest, but I was certainly looked at as a leader in general and probably within the group.
That's a tough pill to swallow, especially at 19, man. That's
And I didn't get that pill swallowed until probably 25 or 26. It took some years before I
Yeah.
realized that there was like, all right, John, you gonna have to man up on this.
yeah. Yeah. Well, and you're reeling with the loss of your best friend. I mean, you want to talk about a whirlwind, life's just changing like with the strike of a match. I mean, holy shit, man. That's
Yeah, yeah.
So did you serve all 14 years then, or
I served 12 on 14 in the state of
oh
Arizona. They
shit,
do
man.
it's loosely called 85%. Technically, it's 6/7 of your time, so
Hmm.
1 day out of every 7, and that's assuming good time. So if you don't act right, then you're gonna do the whole 14. But
Yeah.
yeah, so I served from 19 to 31, and actually, I don't officially get out of that sentence because the sentence finishes on parole or community supervision. So that
Right.
ends next month. I'm getting
Wow.
right toward the end. I've been out just over 2 years now, and my official sentence termination date is July 31st of this year. And so
Yeesh.
12 years in the actual behind razor wire, and
Right.
I spent the last 2 still checking in on a regular basis. I can't leave the state without permission. They've been very flexible with me. Um, I've probably left the state more than any other convicted felon in state of Arizona ever, for traveling around for business for whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But I've also done it right. I did my time very, very well. I made good use of the time,
Mm-hmm.
and I've done well, and tried to redeem a otherwise horrible situation in the best way I've known how.
Right. And yet part of that that good use of time while you were in, I was reading was you helped develop or were instrumental in developing the inmate peer program. So
Yeah,
yeah.
so in the Arizona Department of Corrections, it's kind of interesting. I say this, and I'm guessing it's not just Arizona. I can only just speak for Arizona because I was there.
Right
But
there.
there's, I believe, a very misplaced understanding of what is happening within the correctional system in general. And I've said for many, many years that prison is not bad enough to scare people from going back, and it's not good enough to empower people to not go back. It's
Mm.
this weird kind of babysitting. Just let's stay out of trouble to the best of your ability, and we'll let you out eventually because we have to, kind of thing. And so you're getting 3 meals a day. You got a bed. You got a shower. There's so many things that the human rights activists have done to make prison. It's not great. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to go back, but it's also not like, oh my gosh, I'm traumatized for the rest of my life. And unless you want it to be, it can be very traumatizing. And there's some things I've seen that I certainly don't want anybody else to ever have to see or experience. But it's not that bad. It's certainly not
Mm-hmm.
like, say, an Italian prison 15, 20 years ago where, you go in there
Yeah.
and you might make it out alive in a year, maybe.
Mm.
It's also not good enough. There's not enough rehabilitation. So we decided, those of us in Orange said, you know what? Instead of just complaining about this, there's at least a select few of us that want to create a solution. And so the Inmate Peer Program, or IPP, was something that was a by inmates, for inmates, in order to empower inmates to succeed. And there's, last I knew anyways, there's not a unit in the state of Arizona that has not been touched by either the curriculums that I built or the programs that we put in place. And it was everything from newsletters to rehabilitation classes. One of the best programs I built, because every unit's a little different, but one of the best programs I built, we had different divisions. We had life recovery, and so that was all for like addiction and substance abuse recovery. And then we had
Mm.
life success, and that was like money management and building a business and things like that. And then we had life progress, which was like anger management and parenting. And so we had all these different classes that we were developing the curricula for and we were offering. And so my job was to build that out and to train the people that were offering the classes and to create the structure for all of that. And really enjoyed being able to be a part of the solution and working with some really great people on both sides, both inmates and staff, to create something that hopefully gave some people some tools that empowered them to succeed and become contributing members of the community upon their release.
Oh, that's super. That's awesome. That you were able to, get that started and that program rolling, just from the inmate side,
Yeah.
and then setting up, all your fellow inmates for success on the way out. That's amazing.
I've never heard anybody put it and I've listened to a lot of podcasts. I've heard a lot of interviews on people who have spent long time behind bars, short time behind bars, pretty much everywhere and in between. And I've never really heard anybody say, "Oh, no, it works pretty well." Nobody ever says that.
No.
But the way you put it into words, it's not bad enough to not make you want to go back makes a ton of sense with the amount of repeat offenders you see. And it's not good enough to really, progress it or rehabilitate anybody. It's a really eloquent way to put it. And I think a lot of the change, if it's going to happen, has to come from people like yourself who have lived it, who have done it and can actually put things in programs into place that are actually going to serve a purpose. Because for somebody like me, I can talk to, listen to. I'm just never gonna understand 12 years behind bars. Like it's just, it's fascinating in the sense that like I want to know more and especially like your story and the good you've done and it really like I have a lot of respect for you, man. I'm not just saying that because you're a guest. I really do have a lot of respect for you. It's just I have so many questions. Like it's so perplexing, and it's really cool to hear that you have done things for those who are still behind bars. That you're trying to implement that change that you want to see. So all your programs are still used, in jailhouses across the nation, then, or?
Not the nation, so or at least not that I'm aware of. You never really know what's going to happen, right? Because somebody could take a curricula and then they could reoffend, but then that could, they could actually get their head on it straight, be like, you know what, hey, this really worked. So who knows where it is? I had the privilege, and I don't know if I want to give myself too much credit. I don't know if I could say I started it. I think I can say that I really infused it a lot. I brought a level of organization to it, and there were certainly units that I started it on, but I think that there were others that had similar ideas. Some people that did a great job and paved a way that allowed the conversations I had to be a lot easier because somebody else had already said, hey, we've got to do something. But one of the things that unfortunately is a huge part of the prison culture is a victim mentality. And you would think, well, how are the victimizers playing victim? You would be surprised, all right? There's a huge prevalence of not only woe is me and the system is out to get me and all the things that you might expect, but this idea of it's everybody else's job to fix my mistakes and my problem and my situation. Everything from what prison, quote unquote, has to do for me while I'm there, all the way to what society should do for me once I get out. And I really tried to combat that and say, guys, we can't expect anything from anybody until we're willing to clean up our side of the street. We ruined, as inmates in general, not me and my group, but as inmates in general, we ruined far more good things than we ever created because we couldn't see past our own issues. And I'll give you a stupid example, but it really well illustrates what happens. I was on a unit that the state had sponsored a horticulture program. They had joined together with one of the community colleges, and they had gotten a little greenhouse together, and it was these guys' jobs to learn how to go through horticulture and learn how to develop plants. And in theory, that was going to empower them to work in a greenhouse when they got out, and it gave them a little something to do while they were in. And they were fostering real plants and doing the whole thing. Not being able to see the forest through the trees, what did they start doing? They started smuggling the cactus spines back onto the unit so that they could use them as tattoo needles.
Ingenuity.
Improvise, adapt, overcome.
Right up until the state finds out that they're doing it and shuts down the horticulture program because this is why we can't have nice things. There was another much more involved incident where there was we'll call it a career opportunity. A company, many companies in Arizona collaborate with the Department of Corrections to basically get cheap labor because you're making literally pennies, and so companies will come in and say, hey, we won't pay them pennies, we'll pay them dollars to come work for us, but they're still able to pay a third, a quarter of what it would cost to pay a civilian that has rent, right? And so there was a curb and vent. So basically, the people that make the venting and ventilation systems, for AC systems and things. Well, the guys decided that they wanted to make sure they were ready in case anything crazy happened, and they built an entire body armor behind the scenes and they got some sort of a whim about it, went in and found, I'm not joking, you're talking a full Renaissance era. I mean, body armor, a sword, I mean, a whole 9 yards.
Just made a knight's armor.
Just basically, and it's like, what are you guys doing? Like, you guys are and they killed like 50 jobs.
Dang.
50 jobs went away. And so I was like, guys, we need to stop complaining that the state doesn't help us with this and they don't care. But how about we actually foster the good opportunities and let's create some more? And I can't say whether or not I succeeded, but I can say with a clear conscience that I made every effort to leave that environment in a better place than I found it. I would like to say that because they move you around so much, that's just part of being incarcerated. They move you all the time. Because of that, I got to influence a lot of different units, and I was on every Arizona complex other than one over the course of my incarceration. So
wow, they moved you around that much.
Definitely a wide reach. What's that?
They moved you around that much through 14 years.
Yeah, and it's for one reason or another. So I was in general population the entire time. So not the number one reason people move is because they can't get along with somebody and they decide that they want to seek protective custody. That was not my case. So the first one I moved to, I was started at a unit. And that unit, I think like 3 months after I got there, the state classified it as a sex offender unit. And so the sex offenders are not kept with general population. So they moved all of us that were general population off that unit in order to bring the sex offenders onto that unit. I was then at another unit for like 10 months. And that's kind of a funny but really just like story. The water that they used to water their fields was reconstituted water. I did not know that, and I played soccer, and I'm kind of an all-out kind of guy just in general. If I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it all out. And I dove for the soccer ball in that grass that was apparently infected. And so it was weird. It just felt like a rash at first. Well, we couldn't get rid of it. It started spreading. 10 months later, it's just unbearable. It's literally affecting my mental sanity because it itches, and every time I sweat, it's just unbearable. I can't take a shower. It's just, and the doctor, is trying lotions and potions and this and that, and
right,
not coming up with anything. And granted, it's a prison doctor, so they're not paid to give you real care. They're paid to keep costs down. And anyways, I finally went to this lady and I was like, ma'am, I can't take this anymore. We have got to get me to a dermatologist. And she goes, well, I'm not really authorized to send you off-site to a dermatologist, but I can send you to a cooler climate. And I was like, whatever. Like, the heat was bothering me majorly, so she sends me up into the mountains to one of the units up there. The first thing, doctor sees me and goes, oh, we're sending you to the dermatologist. And I'm like, I've been asking for this for 10 months. Are you serious right now? I met the dermatologist within a week. The dermatologist comes in, and this is never what you want to hear from a dermatologist. Dermatologist walks in, he goes, I've seen some things, but I'm going to put some gloves on when I look at you.
Oh, no, yeah, that's not good.
Turns out I had managed the grass and whatever there had activated something, and it's the official term is folliculitis, but basically it's an eczema. It's an inflammation of the follicles. But simultaneously, the reason nothing was working is because I had two issues. So that whole time I had both eczema and scabies.
Oh no!
Scabies, let's go! Yeah, get some oranges in that guy.
Yeah, it took 4 rounds of scabies treatment to get rid of everything because I've been living with it for 10 months.
Oof, them scabies was
and
in there.
So that's just a little side story there. Anyways, I was only on that unit for like 2 months before they actually converted that from medium custody, which is what I was, to a close custody. It's a higher level of custody. And so they moved all of us medium custody. I stayed at the next unit for 5.5 years. That was probably that was the longest place I was anywhere. Then they opened up a new unit, and my last name starts with A, and I'm guessing I just, top of the list kind of thing, and got moved to open up the new unit. I was only there for, I want to say, it's either 5 or 7 months. I know it was one shy of 6 on one direction or the other. And then I got reclassified to minimum custody, and so I got moved to minimum custody. And the minimum custody yard that I went to, everything was going super well until they got a new deputy warden. And I'm not only was I very involved in the programs, but I've also, in every unit I was on, I was very involved with church stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And this new deputy warden wanted absolutely no inmate-led religious functions, period. And I genuinely tried to comply with the directives as I understood them. She decided that I was not complying well enough and decided I needed to move to another unit because I wasn't doing what I was supposed to do. They sent me to Globe Unit, which was actually the place where I'm the most proud of the best inmate peer program that I've ever put together. I did it on all the other units as well. That part was happening everywhere else I was. But at Globe, I worked with an amazing deputy warden, and we had hands down the best program that any unit that I'm aware of had. Our goal was to be number one in the state, and I believe we achieved it before I left. And I got left there just for the last unit before I went home. They moved me to a different unit right before I went home, and I was there until I left. But yeah, so that you get moved around, and it was just different reasons, different situations, different circumstances. But you're not guaranteed anything, and you never know. It's not like, oh yeah, I'm going to be leaving in a month and a half. No, they will walk up to you one night and say, roll your stuff up, you're leaving. And you're gone by that next morning. They'll let you know 10 o'clock at night, and by 3 o'clock in the morning, you're out of that bed and you're moving on to the next place.
Jeez.
Why was that one warden so anti-inmate-led religious? Was she worried somebody's going to start a cult or what? I mean...
Yeah, actually, I think that's exactly what it was. So what would happen...
Yeah, that's where my brain went, yeah.
So what would happen is different units were run different ways, and that's just the way it's always going to be, I think. But yeah, there are some interesting policies, at least in Arizona, and at least as of 2 years ago, where you can have an inmate-led program all day long, but you are not allowed to have an inmate-led religious program, and it's because of not necessarily cults per se, but rather because of influence, people using religion as a cover for meeting up and doing maybe other things. Yeah. And so I'm not certain where her particular issue was, because I'm not aware of anything like that was going on that unit, but that's why the policy is there. And so what most administrations did was they would allow us to run our inmate-led religious programming under the regular programming banner. So it wouldn't be chaplain supervised or anything like that. It would just, we'd call it mentor groups or something like that, because we were trying to provide good solutions. Well, this particular deputy warden just was not willing to make that concession and literally came in. She called all of us, because it wasn't just me. It was multiple people that were running maybe different Bible studies or different faith communities. She called us all into the room and said, guys, the policy says that doesn't exist, and I'm going to be enforcing that policy. I know that that's not been the case on this unit, but here are the new expectations. Like I said, I genuinely tried to comply with those instructions the way I understood them. And where she got me was I worked together with some volunteers who were coming in and thought, it's under their supervision, it's done in the right way, it's done. And she said, no, you still have way too much influence in that service, and we're not going to keep you here. And I said, okay, well, I guess I'll go try to make a positive impact at somewhere else.
Wow.
There you go. Yeah.
I mean, it all happens for a reason, and you you got moved around and touched a lot of different people's lives implementing these programs, and I can't imagine that there wasn't one person that had some positive experience out of it.
It's interesting. Since I've gotten out, I've had the privilege of taking a few out to lunch after they've gotten out and things. And that's, I've been so humbled to hear just, as they share, like, man, you made this difference, and because of you, this. And it's just like, wow, that is remarkable that I was able to have an impact. So I'm so thankful, because obviously I had to do a whole lot of internal work in my own life to get rid of my own character flaws before I was in a position to do that. And, I'm still on a journey of growth. I don't think I've arrived. I think I have a lot to offer, but I think there's still a lot of room for myself to grow. And so just being able to go through that work and meet people that influenced me and read books that empowered me and things that were just really instrumental to my own growth, which then allowed me to take and pour out into others. And I just, the whole experience, again, it's not the way that I would have wrote it, but I'm deeply humbled and thankful for pretty much all of it.
Yeah. Hard road to get where you were, but in the end, the positive impact I think that you had on many people's lives through the different units that you went through will just end up paying dividends later on for sure.
Absolutely.
Last question, because I do want to talk about what you're doing now. I don't want to just
Yeah.
talk all about,
Sure.
oh, tell me about being locked up. That must have sucked, right? Like, did you feel like any sort of like institutionalization? Is that the right word? Maybe after you left, because you came in at such a young age and spent, all your 20s. I mean, that's really influential times. I mean, was it weird when you came out? Was it, or was it like just like the gates are open and like thank God I never have to go back there?
That is an amazing question, and I'm glad that I get to answer that 2 years later. I've been answering it for 2 years, but I love that I'm on this podcast today and answering it. I spent all 12 of those years doing everything in my power to prepare for getting out. And so because of that, I asked a lot of people who had recidivated, come back in and say, hey, what's it like? And they would tell me stories like that. Like, man, dude, it's weird, like using a real toothbrush or going to the grocery store. There's an entire aisle of cereal, not the 4 choices that we have on commissary.
Yeah.
And, little things like that. And so I walked out really expecting to, maybe have overstimulation anxiety, maybe some PTSD of some sort. All of those things. But at the same time, while I was learning all those things and trying to understand, I was also being very proactive. So I would do little things like I would write my mother once a week and she would write me once a week. And she asked me one day, she said, do you really want some of these details? And I said, I want all of the mundane details of your life. I want to know that part of your life is running to the library to drop off books and going and filling up water jugs because the water in Arizona sucks. And I just want to remember those things because then when I get out, it's going to be, part of my life. And my brother did a great job of keeping me technologically, mindful. And because of the positions I held, I was often working with staff who were out in the community. I almost always had a computer, which is unheard of in the system, but almost always I had one because of the positions that I occupied. And so I walked out and didn't face any of that struggle. I mean, it was remarkable. And I spent like the first months just waiting, like, all right, I know it's gonna hit some point. At some point, I mean, it's just going to, boom, I'm going to get mollywopped. And one day it finally clicked. My brother had said like 2 days after I got out, he had texted me and said probably what is to date the most meaningful thing anyone has said in that context anyways. He said, it was really interesting watching you interact with people yesterday. It was like you never left. And that was meaningful. And then I recalled back how many times I had been told in prison, because people don't like it when you're a solution finder. Whether you're in the corporate world or you're in the prison, the minute you bring new ideas and say, let me help fix something, you're messing with the status quo, and everyone is uncomfortable with that. And I was constantly getting told, John, you need to remember your place. You need to remember what color you're wearing. You need to remember you're an inmate. You constantly, and you get told that enough and you start to go, man, am I the problem?
Yeah.
Am I the one that, like, do I really need to get a clue at some point? Is my vision that just convoluted where I can't see my own inadequacies? And the combination of everything, the combination of those comments plus my brother's comment plus not dealing with things, it finally dawned on me, the problem was not that I did not know my place. The problem was that my place was not there.
Yeah.
So when I got released, I was back in my place. I had to take some time out. When a kid does something wrong, they go into timeout, but their place is still playing in the yard. They didn't lose their place. And so I am deeply grateful and humbled that the institutionalism did not hit me the way it does so many. I had one person ask me, they were asking questions because their partner was in prison, and she said, he tells me that it's really hard, like that, that it's hard to have this as your life and then get out. And I said, it is if you make that your life. And I never made prison my life. I spent 12 years not trying to be an inmate and trying to add value and trying to be, whatever community I was in, I was just going to try to be a blessing and add value. And I think I can say, 2 years out now that I succeeded and that I'm back in my place. And I'm very thankful to be able to add value here now.
Yeah, that's awesome. I got One more kind of question, which will probably help lead into like maybe what you're doing now. But my lovely
Sure.
mother asked, when you were released, did you have family support or were you like on your own? And from what it kind of sounded like through that little bit, you did have, family support there waiting for you.
I
Um,
did. So in Arizona, the way release dates work, it's really wonky. You genuinely don't know for sure when your release is going to be. There is a date that they kind of have to honor, but there's dates leading up to that date that if they want to, they can let you out, and it's very hit and miss. So I'd seen
mm,
guys literally like get into the van, they're already dressed and ready to leave, and then a phone call or something comes in. It's like, nope, turn it back around. He's here for
Oh
2 weeks.
no,
oh,
dude.
dude.
Yeah.
The
So
last
I what I
psychological. Oh, God.
Oh, yeah, brutal. And so, you're doing 12 years and it's like, you know what? I'm just not going to play those games with myself. I'm going to so I knew they had to let me out in July
Hmm.
because that was exactly 2 years before. And so when you're doing 14 years, that whole 6 to 7 ratio is really easy to figure out, right? You have to do
Yeah.
exactly 12 years on 14. So I knew they had to let me out in July. And so that was the date that I gave everyone in my family except my closest brother. And my closest brother, I told him, hey, it looks like it's possibly going to happen as early as May 10th. Let's not get our hopes up. He's a super logical person like myself, so I knew he wouldn't be too crushed if it didn't happen. But everyone else, we told July, July, July. Promoted it July. It's going to happen in July. I can't wait to get out in July. He was there. It did end up happening on not as early as it could have. It could have happened as early as in April, but
Hmm.
May 10th was the day that we thought. It did end up happening May 10th. So he picked me up, and we spent the rest of the day surprising people and just showing up at random places, and
That's
that
pretty
was
cool.
it was really neat to be able to surprise my mom. We got her out to lunch, and I walked up behind her, and that was really neat. Surprised my aunt at her house. It was very, very cool. And then I don't know if you guys have a Top Golf where you are, but then we all went to
Yep.
Top Golf as a family that night, and it was yeah, my cousins, just everybody. It was really neat to be able to do that.
That's cool.
all
Yeah.
all the tears I'm imagining. I'm like
Oh,
tearing up,
yeah.
getting ready to ask you this question. I'm like, I bet, I like that moment. I bet you can't even put into words, what that's like.
It was neat. It was really,
Yeah,
really neat, and yeah, I just remain immensely grateful.
that's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Sorry,
All right.
you're making me get emotional, dude. I'm like,
Got
dude,
him
this
right in the
this guy's
emotions.
life has just been so wild, and again, I don't want to just sit here and just like put you on a pedestal, but I have an immense amount of respect for what you've done and the life you've led up until this point, man. So it's really cool. I'm glad you're out. I'm glad you're on the podcast and
Yeah.
Yeah.
Glad to be here.
not wearing orange anymore.
I don't. It doesn't suit me. I'm
It
a
doesn't.
very
It's
pale
not a.
complected person. It doesn't
It's
You're
work.
not a
talking to a
color that
ginger,
suits
dude.
many.
Orange is not
No,
my color either.
no.
Not a great color for a lot of people.
So nowadays, you have a leadership development firm,
Yeah.
right? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so when I got out, pretty quickly after getting out, I had the privilege of becoming the training manager for an international specialty logistics company, and just really invested in that. And I told people that I don't care about logistics. That's not. I mean, I do love logistics, but not that type. My passion was empowering the people that work there to do their best work, and I got to do that. I got to basically create their training program. I walked in and they had some materials they'd been using, but no official program. So I got to do for them what the same thing I did in the prison, where I kind of built a program and tried to empower people for success. And it was about a year and a half into the time that I've been with them where I had a conversation with the CEO, and we were talking about the need for leadership development specifically. And she's an operationally minded individual, and so she kind of just said, I get it, but let's focus on the operations side of things. And I said, I understand, and I want them to be able to do their operational job. But in my opinion, when we're talking about these leaders, if they can't lead a team, it doesn't matter how good they are at their job. They're not able to effectively motivate and inspire and all the things that you need to do as a leader. And so she kind of said, all right, well, I'll be interested to see what you put together. And in that moment, it clicked. Like, I didn't actually have to put anything together. I had been building leaders for years because that was my role. And so there was a period of reflection where I realized that I had been in leadership over 20 years. I stepped into leadership for the first time at 12 years old, which is a crazy young age, right? But I was involved in martial arts, and the instructor didn't show up due to a traffic jam, and so the parents of the class came to me and said, "Hey, we think you should teach." And I was like, "No, no, 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 no. I'm not the highest rank. I'm not the oldest. No one told me I was allowed to do that. I'm 12. What are you doing?" And they were like, "We're paying for it, so we're gonna need you to do that." And so I stepped in front of that class, and thankfully, I didn't completely screw it up. And by the time I was 15, I was an assistant instructor. By the time I was 17, I had my own classes. And by the time I was 19, I had over 500 students. And so I was doing very well. Developing leader. I was also coaching soccer. I was functioning in the church. And so there was various leadership roles that I was in. Unfortunately, as you already know, my maturity didn't compensate for the amount of opportunity that I had. And so, very poor decision put me in a position that gave us something to talk about for the last 40 minutes.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that leadership is kind of what got you into trouble in the first place, right?
Yeah, and so I had to address all the problems and say, hey, what's within me? Where's the integrity issue? Where's the character problem? And get that all worked out. But that didn't change the natural capacity. And so it wasn't long before, once again, I was in leadership. And again, we've talked about that, developing programs and leading the church and leading fundraising campaigns and, writing newsletters and all sorts of stuff that I was able to do. Walk out of prison and, I'm not supposed to have a chance. I should be mopping floors somewhere, right? No, right into another leadership position. And just, again, very humbled by this. But it just dawned on me like, John, you've been working in this capacity for over 20 years, and you've been helping develop other leaders for over a decade. And it just dawned on me like, that's what I really love. That's what I love about working in logistics. It wasn't logistics, it was helping people be the best they can be. And I really believe that leaders are uniquely positioned to change the world because they have an inherent ripple effect. Now, everybody has a ripple effect. We will all touch another human being today, and their life will never be the same, whether positive or negative, because of the energies that we interact or that we bounced off each other. But leaders specifically are in a position to provide value into other lives, and so those lives are then going to bump into other lives and so forth. And so I am deeply passionate about that end principle. And then I simultaneously noticed that there is a chasm in almost every single industry. Doesn't seem to matter where I go or who I talk to. It's the same story, and that is that individuals are hired in an introductory ground level entry level. That's the word, entry level position. And I think statistically, it's like 10 to 15% of all employees are going to do exceptionally well. And so, what's the natural thing for those 10 to 15%? We're going to promote them. We're going to make them a shift leader. We're going to make them whatever. And then we can't figure out why things kind of fall off the rails. And we don't realize that there's a huge difference between being the best, barista or, construction worker or whatever, and being even a mediocre manager or leader. There's a lot of skills that are necessary. And so I realized that there was not nothing that's specifically targeted to empower frontline leaders and even maybe some of the middle managers. Everybody wants to be an executive coach, and more power to them if they can provide value. I think there's a lot of executive coaches out there that are doing nothing more than trying to get a big paycheck to do nothing. But I really want to empower these lower level leaders because these are the individuals that are directly interacting with staff. These are the people that are going to make an impact and going to be creating the culture that your clients experience. And so I believe that we can fix a lot of the turnover issues that companies are experiencing nowadays and a lot of the client satisfaction issues that companies are experiencing if we can invest into these frontline leaders so that they will treat the internal clients in a productive way, and those internal clients, the employees, can then reach out to the external clients in a meaningful way. And I really think that we have an opportunity to just radically transform the way business is done by reducing turnover and improving customer satisfaction by just investing into these frontline leaders.
Huge.
I'm in sales, and we say all the time, good salespeople don't make good sales managers,
Right.
And it's such a pitfall. Before I was in teaching, and we used to say good teachers don't make good directors, the ones who are running the business. And it's a pitfall you see so many companies, so many people fall into. It just seems like that should be the natural progression, but leaders are a lot different. Leading 15 people is a lot different than, being boots on the ground out there, serving clients every day.
And I had somebody try to argue, and not in a mean way, but they tried to argue. They said, well, yeah, of course, I don't need to train them. All I need them to do is replicate themselves. So if they're a good whatever and I promote them, I just want them to make other. It doesn't work that way.
Not how it works.
Personal skills. You need communication skills. You need conflict resolution skills. You need, all sorts of things that don't come with. I use the barista example a lot because I meet with people in coffee shops all the time, and I go, you can know the coffee machine like nobody's business, but that doesn't mean that you understand how human nature works. Mm-hmm. And that's what you really need to be an effective leader. And so I think I'm filling a gap, and I think we're making an impact. But that's where my passion is, and that's what I'm working toward now.
That's awesome. My lovely mother has another question for you. She said, "Do you
Okay.
take this leadership training into other businesses, or is there like a program any company can purchase and implement?" Now, I kind of know the answer because I took a little peruse through your website, but I'm not going to steal your thunder on it.
Not a problem. So the model that we're using at the moment is basically we start with an event to both build rapport and get an idea of kind of the company culture. And then we follow that up with a leadership assessment. And I believe in 360-degree assessment. So if you're the leader, I want to hear from you. What do you think you're doing? I'm going to hear from your supervisors. How well are you executing on the vision of the organization? And I want to hear from your staff. How well is your leader effectively engaging with you and, giving you dignity and empowering you to do your best work and all of that. And from that point forward, you have kind of two paths that can go, because every company is going to get the event, and every company is going to get the report that says, hey, or the assessment, hey, this is what we believe that can be modified. At that point, a company can choose to continue to work with us and say, hey, we think you have some knowledge, we think you have some solutions, why don't you come work with our leaders and start developing them out? Or they can say, hey, thanks for the report. We now know what we need to work on, and we're going to start investing in this in our own way. And I really believe that every company is different. Many people are selling a program. And in a sense, I am as well. But I tend to think that a lot of the programs are this idea that I have the solution. I don't believe that exists. I think that every individual is different and every organization is different. And so I want to get to know your organization. If you want real change, now if you just want to check a box and say, I want to, we did a leadership program, you're going to find that. You're going to find all kinds of people, and they're probably less expensive than me, and they might even be better salespeople than me, and you're going to find something that you can bring in and run your people through, some videos they can watch, a workbook they can complete, whatever it is. And it might even have a really positive impact, but I don't believe that what is good for one is necessarily good for another. Mm-hmm. So that's why we do events, and it's all very customizable. I've got over 30 different leadership disciplines, and so let's say, for example, one of you is running a company and you say, you know what, I believe in this vision. I want to do this for my company. I'd say, cool. First of all, how big an event do you want to start with? Do you want to start with a 30-minute luncheon event, or do you want to do a 2-day weekend extravaganza kind of thing? And then you say, all right, let's just do like the 2-hour event. Cool. Here's my list of 30-something disciplines. Do me a favor, pick 2 of them that you think would be relevant to your people. And we're going to use those 2. I'm not going to try to work you into my mold. No. Your company. I'm here to assess it, but you know what you think is important. You know the values that you're trying to espouse. So let me come in. I'll talk about those 2. We'll do a Q&A. We do a whole shindig, right, on those 2 topics. We do the workbooks that accompany that, and they're all unique and individualized. So your company logo will be on the workbook and everything. It's all white labeled and it's ready for your organization. We're going to come in. We're going to do the event. That lets me get to know. It lets get to know the leaders. It lets me develop rapport. It lets me kind of feel the energy. And then for the following week, we're going to start talking to people. We're going to start doing interviews, and we're going to start cross-referencing, and we're going to start, hey, I noticed this, or hey, how come nobody asked questions in this group? Things like that. And then we're going to create an assessment that says, hey, here's where you need the most work. And sometimes that looks like you need to get these 2 people out of the office. They're spending more time fighting than they are actually creating solutions for your organization. Other times it's you have an individual that is in power that is only there because they've been here longer and they have 0 leadership capacity whatsoever. And you need to make a decision. Loyalty matters. I don't want to say it doesn't.
But right now, you are choosing that individual that's been here for X amount of years over quality talent that's going to continue to walk out the door until you remove that individual. You need to make a choice. And depending on the organization will depend on either A, what that looks like, and then B, what choices they make.
Hopefully that answers your question, Mom. Are you asking because you're trying to get a hold of John for your company?
You have to be a big Jocko Willink guy, right?
I do love the
Okay.
extreme ownership perspective.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
I love, but I would like to believe that I'm not I don't want to just parrot another guy, right? So he's very
No,
big
no,
on
and I'm not.
ownership. I also like the find the win guy, and a lot of
Yep.
that stuff. So there's some things that I've been saying for a decade from behind bars while all these other guys have been writing books, and I'm a little jealous, but I'm glad that they're getting the message out, and I'm really thankful that people are being benefited.
Let me make it very clear. I'm not suggesting that you're like stealing Jocko Willink's like business development, you know what I mean? But a lot of the things that you just said, and a lot of the things that I find so true and so important, especially from a business sense, is what you just said. As far as loyalty is important, but you see a lot of guys working the high-powered jobs that aren't the best person for that job, and not only are they not the best solution, but they're driving away other good talent because of it. And you're hurting your company in the name of loyalty, and that's where you gotta, walk the tightrope a little bit.
Absolutely.
Now I'm a big Extreme Ownership's one of my favorite. That audiobook, man, I listen to on repeat all the time.
If you can't take ownership for yourself, then you can't actually take ownership for anybody else. I had a conversation with one group that I did training with, and they were really struggling with the idea of leadership ownership because they were getting stuck on same thing I got stuck on at 19, fault. Right? There's a huge difference between responsibility and fault. And so, at 19, I'm sitting there going, "Hey, I broke a window. What are you talking?" And there was no ownership. I was strictly, and so they were like, "Well, no, I didn't put that information in wrong. You can't expect." There's a huge difference. Stop telling me what you didn't do. You are the leader of this team. You may not be at fault. You are absolutely responsible. And until you can kind of get there, it's going to be, you're not going to lead and you're not going to have the respect of your team because they know that it's all going to be about stuff rolling downhill. I have a series of videos. I don't know if you guys checked out my YouTube channel, but there's a series that will be coming out about people throwing their team under the bus when things don't go well, and how just that's
sounds like the military sometimes. Which leads into my next question: have you ever worked with anybody in like military proper that are still like active duty units or anything like that? Has anybody like contacted you to kind of like maybe help out a unit with like dog shit leaders or anything like that, or has it been more just business?
So far, just business. I am very open. People like to ask me, what's your demographic, and I tell them I in cross industry. I believe leadership principles are transferable. Doesn't matter what industry you're in. My thing is much more about your idea. So if you want somebody to come in and do leadership training on how a leader needs to take charge and get things done, and they do, but that's probably not the message they're going to get from me. I'm going to talk about loving your team and empowering them to succeed, because that is going to get things done. I'm not going to come in and talk about how to, yell at your team better and motivate them through a carrot stick mentality. So I say whatever the industry is, if you have a desire to see the servant-based leadership, servant-minded leadership, I would be happy to help. And so far, I have some affiliation with individuals that are in the military, but so far no one has asked me to come share there.
Interesting. There is I've been through a few different units that could definitely utilize that servant leadership mindset, because boy howdy. Yeah. There's some people
One of the things that I find a lot of the bigger organizations get stuck on is they say, "Well, John, we do everything internally. We have a leadership development program, we have that, and they do, and I'm not going to try to sell them on why that they need me. That's if I got to sell you on why you need me now, I'm gonna have to sell you again later and again later.
Right.
That's just not. I don't want to sell you if it's not a win-win. But what a lot of people don't realize is that when you have an internal program, it's probably great. I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt, and I'm going to say that it's got great content. I know some people from the military, a guy that I respect immensely as a wonderful leader, made it all the way up to a major in the or a colonel I think actually in the military. And anyways, he fantastic leader, great content. What the problem is that people don't realize that the human condition actually silences the most common voices in our lives. And the easiest way I've always found to illustrate this is, if you don't believe me, why is it that your wife will listen to everyone before she will listen to you? You can tell her. Go ahead.
Will you say that phrase again real quick? Yeah,
I'm sure.
And this isn't a joke. It's kind of a joke now, but I was going to ask you, say that again.
It's absolutely true. Your wife will listen to everyone else before she'll listen to you.
Yeah.
It's not because she hates you. It's not because she disrespects you. It's because as the human condition, we are trained to tune out the common voices. And so you'll be telling her something for weeks, months, and then she'll hear it from a friend or something, and she'll be like, honey, I heard this amazing idea. And she tells you, and you're just like,
I told you just 3 weeks ago.
let me give you the most perfect example. When we just bought this house a couple months ago. Our little starter home had a really crappy little dishwasher that we didn't use hardly ever because it hardly even worked. By the new house, big beautiful dishwasher, right? I'm putting the dishwasher tabs in the actual compartment in the drawer, and she's like, "You're supposed to put those underneath. You're not supposed to put those in." And I was like, "No, I'm pretty sure you're supposed to put those in the door. Like, it literally says on there to put them in the door." I'm watching she continues to put them at the bottom. Honey, I love you. I'm sure she's listening. I find a TikTok video a couple weeks later that says, "Why you're supposed to put the tabs in the door." Guess who started putting the tabs in the door after the TikTok video? Not the instructions on the machine, not your husband. A TikTok video. I'm like, oh, hey, whatever. If that's what gets the job done, I'm happy with it.
Yeah, and kids are the same way, right? Kids will listen to every other parent on the block before they'll do what you want them to do. And again, it's not that they're mad at you. It's not that they disrespect you. It's the human condition. It's why you can read a book. You don't know that author. You don't know the person from Adam. But for whatever reason, it will make an impact more on you than what your wife has told you. Your wife might have told you for the last 6 weeks, honey, we really got to get away from fats and salts, and we need to do more vegetables and proteins. And you're like, yeah, give me my potato chips, right? And then you read a book on the value of drinking a lot of water and getting toward proteins and greens, and you're like, honey, I'm going to go buy some salad, right? It's the way we are. And so what does this have to do with business? Well, you can have a great internal program, but if it's being delivered by people that everybody already know, they're tuning them out. Not because they're disrespecting them, not because they don't care. It's the human condition. I can come in and say the exact same thing that you just said, but because I am not a known commodity, all of a sudden it makes sense.
It's the outside perspective. Not only does the perspective help, but hearing it said from someone who doesn't work with you day in and day out, oh, you're just saying that just because we sit in a cubicle, 10 feet away from each other all day, and I listen to you yammer about a bunch of other shit that, quite frankly, I think you're crazy about. But when you come in and say it, it's like, oh man, okay, yeah, this guy doesn't know me from Adam, and now I hear it echoed. Maybe there is something to this.
Exactly.
That's the most infuriating thing for me. That's like, it gets me so bad because it's helpful. We're like, all right, okay, cool. We finally got the point across. But then it's like, dude, I've been saying this for 6 weeks. Like, why is it? Why?
Yeah,
so
yeah,
that's the
absolutely.
infuriating side of it. But at the end of the day, I'm
Yeah.
like, shoot, as long as it gets across, like, fine. But like, it just irks me.
And this kind of illustrates beautifully what I was going to say earlier, talking about Jocko and everything, and why I think these topics are so important is because it doesn't just relate to a business level. When Jocko's talking and he's saying, if a team is failing, it doesn't matter who the coach is or what role that coach has on that team. It is that coach's responsibility to make that team, help that team succeed. And that has changed my perspective, like being a husband and a father. Like, this is my team. Like, and I coached baseball for a long time, and I quite frankly was young, and sometimes it was the umpire's fault, sometimes it was that kid's fault for being a shithead and not making that play or whatever. But I would accept responsibility, but listening to Jocko and people like yourself relay these messages, it changes the shape that you have on not just business but relationship, interpersonal, not only with the relationship you have with others but the relationships you have with yourself. These topics are very important in many facets of life, not just the business sense.
100%. My keynote ends along those lines where I say, in the keynote, I talk about 4 things that will make anybody at least start you off on a path toward leadership, and that's love your team, make time for them. Did I just miss one? Love your team, love your team, make time for them, or be available, listen, and find the yes. Those are the 4 there. And I say, hey, if you're an executive, love your team, make time for them, listen, and find a yes. If you're a manager, all 4. If you're a parent, love your team.
Exactly.
And it does. It works at every single level. If anybody is looking to you for leadership, these principles are 100% relevant.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, I am very happy to hear, because especially like the big names and stuff like that, like the Jockos, but it's really refreshing to hear somebody that's not, and you do see a lot of like, what's that 10x guy? I can't think of his name. Yeah, and sorry if you're a 10x guy, but okay, cool. To me, that seems like a guy who's found this program that he's trying to implement. Liver King, another perfect example. Yeah, the guy eats liver, but he's also taking PEDs and he's trying to go viral. Like, that's his incentive. He's not out trying to better people. If that comes as a byproduct of making a lot of money, then fantastic. But making a lot of money is at the core. That's the goal here. It's really nice to know that there's individuals like yourself that are out there doing it. Obviously, business and money plays a role into it, but it's more to try to help people be better people, essentially.
Yeah, I think that we can really make an impact, and yes, it is business. Without a doubt, there is a money component. But people have asked me why I don't go into executive coaching, because that is in theory where all the money is. And from a strict business perspective, I think that particular market is so tapped out right now. It's ridiculous. I mean, it really seems like everyone and their dog thinks they're an executive coach right now. These people have never been executives in their lives, but they're going to coach you on how to be successful. But no, seriously, like, nobody is doing this, and I think it's because it's an uphill battle. I mean, I've experienced crazy challenge because I have to get an executive to be willing to pay for something that isn't for him or her. It's for his lower level leaders, right? And I have to be able to show that, hey, nobody's doing this, and it's not because it's not needed. Nobody is doing this because nobody is thinking, oh, I can make easy money at this. And
Exactly.
so it's an uphill battle, but I think it's an uphill battle that's worth waging, because I believe that it's really going to make a huge impact. And any business that agrees, I think they're going to see an exponential ROI on this, because when you start investing into the I believe it's, as Zig Ziglar says, you don't build a business, you build people, and people build the business, right?
Yeah.
And so those people that are going to build your business are your frontline leaders. Those are the ones that are actively engaging with your staff and are either creating or destroying a great culture.
Right, because they're the ones that are going to make people motivated to come to work and do the job to make the money. If you hate coming to work and your managers suck, you're just start hemorrhaging.
And especially in the new generation. The new generation is not tolerating that. Our generation was a little more. We had a little more like, you know what, I got a sucky manager, but I'm going to suck it up because I got bills to pay. This new generation is just like, screw you. I don't have to work.
Gen Z does not give a damn.
Nope.
If something is going sideways at work, they're like, whatever, dude, I don't need it, I'm out. And they'll go find something else.
Yep.
And then you got boomers and people that are complaining that they're lazy. Well, it's like, well, no, they're not lazy. They just don't want to get treated like dog shit every day they come to work.
Yeah.
I was not planning on looking at my work notes from training, but there's this guy. I gotta tell you about him. He did some generational training.
Okay.
Phil Gwoke is his name. Gwoke. He led some. I think you would like him a lot. He has done some generational training for our company, explaining like the buying process, especially like the consumer process for Gen Z, Gen X, baby boomers.
All that.
Exactly. And some really fascinating stuff on like even just how the commercials were so different back then, the messaging in the commercials. And that's not, like, especially if you're not, studying this kind of stuff, it's probably like, well, yeah, commercials have changed. Well, they've changed very, very intentionally. Like, they didn't just change on their own. They changed because people are changing and how targeted ads are. It's Phil Gwoke, Gwoke. If you have some spare time, look at some of his stuff. He's really good.
I've heard of him. I'll have to look him up. It's funny you bring up commercials. That was one of the things that I actually used to aid in my rehabilitation, believe it or not. I recognized that these companies were spending billions and trillions of dollars a year studying trends so that they could understand culture and society, and then they're targeting these commercials to that. And so I realized that if I would pay a little close attention to the commercials, it would actually give me a really good idea of what was happening out in the free world, because they were spending uber amounts of money to speak to what was happening. And so
that's brilliant.
I paid really close attention. I never just watch TV. I would always have it on in like the background while I was writing letters or whatever. But yeah, I would pay attention to commercials, especially new ones, because I knew that they were very, very strategic.
We could have another probably 2-hour podcast on this side of things. I knew I wanted to get into this side, but I also had so many questions about, the previous part of your life. But especially I've spent some time in management for the company that I work for, back in just the sales force now, locations, and I was on the road all the time, and now married and bonus dad, and I can't be on the road all the time. But especially having lived both of those worlds, the sales management side. My dad is the general manager for our local company, so I've had a lot of insight into his role. Spent a lot of time doing just the sales side, and it's just how it all runs and functions. People think that and I'm sure like companies like Microsoft are like well-oiled machines, but there are still people at the helm of those companies, and those people are still very susceptible to making very people-like mistakes. There's not like an algorithm that all of these companies like just follow, and every decision is made correctly at the end of every day. They're not mom and pop, obviously, but they're a lot more mom and pop that you would probably think they are if you really got a microscope on it.
Yeah. Well, you can just look. I mean, how many times do you see these huge companies like Microsoft or most notably and most recently Twitter, where you
bring just going to say that.
Yeah, you bring in a different CEO, and they're like, this thing is run horribly. Now,
look at these emails.
Whether you like or dislike Elon, I don't want to get into the politics of that right now. But the reality is you've got an individual that's one of the wealthiest individuals in the world, because he started so many successful companies, coming into another company that is also hugely successful, and saying this thing is run like trash. Is he right? Is he wrong? I don't know. I haven't done an assessment myself, but it is. It's very, very. Like you said, mom and pop-ish. There's people making decisions, and you're seeing right now, because of the Elon takeover and the way that that's happened, you're seeing continued fallout. I think you had 2 major people quit this week because they were continuing to make decisions the way that it had always been made, and then they found out, oh, I'm not allowed to make those decisions like that anymore, and so they were like, well, we're out now. There's a trickle effect, and you really want to create a culture. So again, leaving out whether Elon's culture is good, bad, or indifferent, Elon has a culture he's trying to create, and he has to now train those frontline leaders on the culture that he wants. And if they're not trained, it won't matter, because now the reality is that 80% of your company is not leadership. 80% of your company is employees. The 20% is leadership, and you need those leaders to be on board. And often companies invest hugely into the executive team, which is important. But here's the problem. Most of the time, the executive team has absolutely no contact with the day-to-day employees. And so it only trickles down so far. You can have great leadership at the top, and it might trickle down 2 or 3 levels. But by the time you get to frontline managers, there's just nothing left to trickle down, and they can't figure out why things are not going well. And that's why, I don't know what you guys think of the show Undercover Boss, but I love that show because it forces those executives to come all the way down to the level that many of them haven't even thought about stuff. I remember watching one years ago, and it was like they'd been making these decisions, and it was I think it was like a national massage place, Massage Envy or something like that. And they were like, yeah, we can't even use the lotion we sell. It sucks. We use this other stuff that we have to bring in ourselves because otherwise our clients hate it. And this lady's like, are you serious? Like, this is my brand. This is my baby. and we can't even use our own lotions.
Yeah, your lotion sucks.
Yeah. And it's like, these are things that these executives, they don't know. They're not spending time on the floor. They should. I would love to encourage them to do so.
More.
But between board meetings and vision casting and investor meetings, and they don't have time, and their lower level leaders are not equipped to effectively fill that gap.
Mm-hmm.
I hate the phrase, see how the sausage gets made. But at the same time, like, it's so cliche, and I hate that term. But again, when you see how the sausage gets made, you're a little bit like, oh, shit. Like, and then when it comes to the corporate, or business world at the same time, you lose so much of that context. Again, when you're doing your projections and, okay, here's Q2, what's Q3 look like, lady, your lotion at the massage place sucks. So maybe start there, like
Quarter 3 earnings might be up if we didn't have trash lotion. Like,
yeah.
No, it's remarkable. And what you have, I'm sure we need to wrap up, but what you have is the tendency of leaders to be in one of two extremes, and neither one of them is healthy. So you have the executives that refuse to delegate, and they still think that they need to micromanage every little thing at the ground level, and they refuse to just say, hey, I need to trust other people to do it. Right? So you have those executives, and that's not healthy. You can only do so much. You're stifling the creativity. You're bringing in great people only to tell them that they don't know what they're doing. Or you have the executives that have not the faintest idea of what's happening at the ground level, and they're making these decisions that are trickling down, and they're not... They're so far, the ivory tower cliche comes into effect, and both sides are incredibly ineffective. And so you have to have authentic delegation. And I define delegation as providing both responsibility and authority to complete the mission. You have to actually give them both, not just I'm going to hold you responsible if this doesn't happen. No, if they have to ask you permission to do what they need to do to complete it, you haven't actually delegated the project to them. You can only claim you delegated it to them if they have both responsibility and authority to complete the project. So you have to be able to do that while simultaneously having feedback mechanisms in place so that you can be informed about what's going on and you're not completely clueless to what's happening, even if that means, and I love the idea of Undercover Boss outside of a TV show, even if that means if you're huge, if you're a megalith, go be a stock boy at Walmart for a week. You've got that. If you can go on your yacht for a week, you can also make a decision to invest in the success of your overall business for a week and go, or maybe you can't, maybe you're still too well known because you're not Walmart level. Okay, great. You go and you hire somebody specifically for the purpose. Listen, your only job, you have a 2-week assignment. Your job is to be a new person at my store. I want to see what you experience day in and day out because I want to understand. And of course, if you're a good leader, you want to understand. You're not doing it to spy on your people. You're not doing it to come in crashing down. I saw what you're doing. You're doing it to understand and learn and grow and say, okay, this is an area that we need to address from a culture perspective, from an execution perspective, whatever it is we're trying to understand. But I mean, I could talk about this forever. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, you're fine. You're fine. You got me with the micromanaging thing right now because, and I'm gonna put people on blast. I'm not gonna use names and whatever. But my boss right now is that falls so very squarely in that micromanaging thing, and it's aggravating. He has, he's a senior non-commissioned officer, NCO. He's our boss. He has NCOs underneath him that he just does not trust to do stuff. He has to be like, he has to micromanage everything, and they always are going to him, be like, hey, hey boss, hey sir, can we do this, can we do that, or whatever. And he it's so aggravating because he just micromanages everything, and I'm like, holy crap, just like let them do their thing, because I'm at a position now where hopefully very soon I'm going to be in that like middle manager spot, and I'm not looking forward to working underneath him with all that micromanaging that he does, and it's just aggravating. So I don't know, about to be like, hey boss, why don't you go listen to my boy John, because your head is so far up your ass and it's aggravating me.
To a guy like that, you have to wait for him to bring up something about like trainings and be like, oh, that's such a great idea, man. Actually, I have a friend. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so you mentioned earlier the 360-degree feedback, right? This man tried to do that. He was like, oh yeah, it was a very thinly veiled thing. Like, I saw right through it. I was like, you don't actually care. You just want to know who fucking hates you. But I don't think it ever happened because he was trying to do like an anonymous like Survey Monkey, and I don't ever think it ever happened.
Don't fill
and I
that
was
thing
like,
out.
I'm not filling that thing out. I was like, you'll know, number one, by my answers who's telling you this, and number two, I'm not trying to make my life hell at work.
My sister filled one of those out one time and then got fired like a week later.
God dang.
Wow.
No joke, like 5 people in her company. Yeah.
So there's a company that is in development. They're working with. I'm a consultant for them on the leader, not developing their leadership. They are developing leadership software, and I'm working with them to provide insight on how the software works. They have a truly anonymous functionality that provides the 6 pillars of leadership. That basically people can respond to, and it is what it sounds like would be needed in that scenario, because nobody is able to know except for the owners of the content, which would be the company that does it, and they only know it based on an email address. But you can even do with that. I ran a company through the software under a test basis where we didn't even use email addresses. We used the same link for everybody. And so I can give your link, say, to Alex, I can give your link to 15 people. We'll wait for 15 responses, but we don't even know. I know which 15 people I gave it to, but there's no tracking because they're all using the exact same link. So there's no way to know who did it when. And it provides really, really good feedback. So if that's something if he really wants it and he's not just trying to figure out who, there is software out there that will actually give it. SurveyMonkey's not it. You can always track SurveyMonkey. I know, I've used it. But no, there is some stuff out there that's designed. And most of the time with a leader like that, and it's really sad. I hate to say this because I genuinely believe that no one is beyond redemption on this stuff. But 99% of the time, a leader like that will never actually submit themselves to that level of scrutiny.
Which
it
is
will
probably
always have to come from somebody above them.
So probably why the Survey Monkey hasn't happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, and his Raider, it's a whole mess, but like he's an all right dude, and he like knows how to crunch numbers and do that stuff. Just as far as the people aspect of being a leader, it is not good.
Yeah.
It's not good.
That's a common refrain. It's unfortunately not just him. So when you're talking personality traits, the number crunchers are the ones that have the hardest time with micromanaging because they genuinely, and it's not even it is an ego thing, but it's not. They don't think it is. They just believe no one can do it as well as I can. They know the numbers, they know the statistics, they know all the angles, the aspects, the facets, whatever word you want to use, and it boggles their mind to think, you know what, my way might be the best way, but if I let them do it their way, it's probably going to turn out better. Because they're going to be passionate about their way and they're going to believe in their way. And if I try to force them to do it my way, I might as well just do the work for them and fire them because they're not going to get it done the way I want it in the end anyways.
Damn, it's just mind-boggling how accurate you are with all of this. It's just Jesus. it's just
20 years of
wild.
experience will do that for you.
It's just wild because this dude, like, he's a good dude, but God, he sucks as a leader.
Yeah, I have to battle that myself. I have to battle, you could ask my wife, and she would tell you that I have those perfectionist tendencies, and I've had to learn to say, you know what? My way might be great, but my way is not necessarily the way.
Mm-hmm.
There are other ways that are just as valid, and I have to kind of constantly battle that. And even in my own projects, right, as we're building the company and we're doing little things, and there are times where I'm like, babe, I'm sorry, I need it to be done this other way. And other times it's like, you know what? Do it your way.
Mm-hmm.
Because my way, it may make perfect sense to me, but she's the creative one. I'm not the creative one. I'm an innovative person. So I haven't come up with an original idea in my life. I take everybody else's original ideas and I try to make them a little bit better. Mm-hmm. She's the creative one. She's the writer, the drawer, that stuff. And so she is much better. But at the same time, I don't want to innovate her ideas and, crush her spirit because now nothing is ever good enough. Right. And so I have to personally fight that tendency of my own little ego and things that thinks that I know what I'm talking about, and learn to, again, truly delegate and say, hey, your ownership. And that doesn't mean we won't reassess. We're going to give you ownership of this. And at the end, we'll reassess and say, okay, did it work? Did it not work? All right, what are we going to do different? Or, no, it worked great. Man, I'm sure glad I let you have that because I would have done it differently and it probably wouldn't have worked as well as it did.
Right.
And finding those things. But it's tough for anybody that falls into that personality type of perfectionist. There's depending on which test you take, depends on which what it is.
I get it for sure. I haven't taken any of those tests, but I know that I know myself, and I'm a perfectionist about things. So that's been the struggle that I have with stuff. But thankfully, I've had this guy to look at and a few other like really crappy leaders before me that I've been like, okay, we're not doing things like that. So taking that and learning from the other people's mistakes basically,
awesome,
has been helpful. But yeah, so. We're coming up on an hour and a half. So, you got any last save rounds, Alex, or you want to?
No, I was just going to say we do have to wrap up because I'm 25 minutes over and I got bedtime.
No one's listening by this point. They've all decided they're tired of hearing my voice.
That's not true, John. It's not true.
No, I'm not just saying this. Like I need to get your contact information. I'd like to be friends with you if you're okay with that, John. No, but for real, just stay in contact. And I do want to book another interview with you.
Okay.
We're like through the end of July right now, but here in the next couple months, because I've got another hour and a half of stuff. And sorry, Ben, I'd kind of dominated some of that conversation, but
it's fine.
I do have a lot more that I want to ask, but we'll just have to do it another time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Part two.
Last question of the night. We asked this to all of our guests that we have on. We started that at the beginning of this year. It's Alex's little baby. He's super proud of it. But
I kind of forgot about this. Honestly, I was just thinking about wrapping
that's
up.
why I do this intro to it, because I know you forget about it, and it's your brainchild. So,
and it's a super. It's loaded in the sense that there's a lot to expound on, and you definitely don't have to give a paragraph answer. You can give a sentence or two sentences or a paragraph, whatever. But everybody we've interviewed, it's really interesting, no matter what their specialty is, or if they're coming on as like a person who sells rock jewelry. We end up having these kind of same conversations we had tonight, that kind of go back to life. And I've asked everybody, and we've gotten really interesting, kind of different answers, but all kind of coming back to the same general concept. When you think about life, when you think about you're here, I'm here, we're all here, why do you think we're here? What do you think our goals should be? What's our plot in life as humans?
That's a fantastic question. So I mentioned earlier that I was a big part of the church stuff. I'm a Christian, and my worldview is shaped by my relationship with Jesus. And
Amen.
So I believe that God put us here. I think that he's allowed us to be here for the purpose of really continuing to invest into what he created.
I believe in what the Bible says, that we were created in His image, and I believe that means kind of with His essence. And He was speaking things into existence. And so I believe our words have a lot of power, and I believe that He gave us creative genius the same way that He has when He spoke things into existence and created what we experience. So I think as far as our journey here, I think I actually, I don't know if I posted it yet or if I just created it, but I saw something that what's his name? He was right-hand man to Tony Robbins for a while, and now he's a pretty big name on his own. Gary Vaynerchuk.
There you go. Yep.
Gary Vaynerchuk put something out, and he said something. I don't want to misquote him. I certainly don't want to rile up his millions of fans, but he made the statement that he said basically success is, we need to redefine success in the minds of however many billion people, because success is not making a lot of money. Success is waking up in the morning happy. And I don't disagree with the first half of his statement, but I do disagree with the second half. And I said, let me see if I can actually pull it up real quick. There we go. I said, success is not found in personal happiness. Success is achieved by making a positive impact in the life of another. And so that's where legacy comes in. You can make money, you can be happy all your life, but if that's all it amounts to, the day you die, it's over. And now it's between you and God, and that's where eternal life comes in, and we can get into a different conversation on that. But from a mortal perspective, what we're here on this earth to do, it's to leave a legacy that ripples into the lives of others and provides value in their lives. And so, do I want to be happy? Well, of course, we all want to be happy, but I don't perceive that as being the measure of success. There's going to be days where we're just not happy. Circumstances don't go our way, and things are not the way that we wish that they would be. But if we are adding value to the world, if we are making this place a better place, I think that's where we can say true success lies. And I think that I say a lot, when my head hits the pillow at night, I want to be able to say that each person I came into contact with is better off for having encountered me and is more likely to seek a relationship with God than less. And so if I look at that in the big picture, when my head hits that pillow for the final time, I hope that the same thing is said on a grander scale, that every person that's encountered in my life is better off because of it and is more in tune with the Creator because of it.
Amen, man. That was really well put. Very, very well put.
And surprisingly enough, from the amount of different people we've talked to already this year, some being Christian, some being not, they've all kind of come back to that general, make everybody's life better moving forward, whatever form that takes. But I think the heart of it has been so far, just be good to people and just make everybody's life around you that you touch better.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
It's cool. It's super. It's cool for us. That's why we like asking that question at the end, so we can see how it all fits together and what everybody has said.
Love it.
And many different walks of life and religions have all kind of come to the same conclusion.
It also goes back to the point, it's cool to kind of watch it play out in front of my eyes Sunday to Sunday. We're all so much more alike than and again, this is another podcast, another time, what the narrative of some media outlets would choose or to have you believe. We are all so much more similar at the end of the day. Doesn't matter if we say God or Buddha or creator or agnostic, whatever, maybe like Satanist. I don't know. That might be a little different realm, but no, in all seriousness, at the end of the day, we're not all that different. And the vast majority of people just want to try to be good to each other and just want to kind of help us along. Try to make somebody's day a little bit better. Try to make this existence as humans just a little bit easier, because it's hard being down here, all we can do is try to make somebody else's walk a little bit easier, a little bit better. So
absolutely.
100%. Well, we won't keep Alex any longer from bedtime and or dinner. And John, we've taken up an hour and a half of your evening as well, which we thank you greatly for. It's been a wonderful podcast episode. I didn't talk much in the beginning because I was just sitting here fully enraptured in your story.
Where can people find you? Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn?
Pretty much all of the above. So if you go to servantmindedleadership.com, you're going to see basically everything. And there's a way for you can get on my calendar if you want to, or just send us a message. But there's also links to LinkedIn, LinkedIn/in/servant-minded leadership, Instagram @servant-minded leadership, Facebook @servant-minded leadership. I think my Twitter is the same as this. I think it's the real John A. If I remember correctly.
Think so, because I put all of those down in the description underneath this video.
Perfect.
So your website's down there, your Facebook, your
Awesome.
Instagram, and there was one other one.
YouTube. Hopefully YouTube.
I will find it. We'll find it and put it in there. I don't know if I got that one from off the website, but we will definitely make sure that to edit that one in there before.
Perfect. Yeah, live. YouTube. I post 3 videos a week that are all like 2 to 4 minutes long on just topics of leadership. There's probably 40 or 50 up there right now.
Nice.
So we're going to continue to post those, and then also I post reels the same 3 times a week. It's usually a similar topic. They're kind of connected, but the little 30-second clips on them as well. So my YouTube channel, which is also Servant Minded Leadership.
All right.
That website will be in the show notes also if you're not watching on YouTube. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Music or any of those, A, thanks for listening this long. And B, scroll down to the bottom, show notes, click on the website.
Perfect.
Right. Perfect. Cool. All right. Well, we will not take up any more of anybody else's time. Thanks you again, John, for coming on. We had a great conversation with you. Thank you, everybody that's watching, and all of you that are going to be listening later. Next week we have another guest, Alex. Yes.
Yeah, I don't know who it is right now. We're booked out for a while.
Well, there you go. We're booked out.
So. I think next week's another medium. I think we have another.
Nice.
Patrick, the medium.
All right. We got a medium on next week, anyways. So you guys look forward to that one. I know you guys love those episodes.
It's not Patrick Germain, is it?
I don't think so.
John, now you're gonna send him down a rabbit hole, and we're gonna sit here another 10 minutes while he figures it out.
No, I'm pretty sure. Right.
I'm pretty sure he's got like 2 first names. It's like William Patrick or Patrick William or something like that. Anyway,
I wonder if he saw it coming.
We should ask him how it's gonna go next week.
Oh man! All right, y'all. We will see you next week.
Thank you, John.
Thanks for having me on.
Yes,
Make sure you tell somebody you love them out there this week. All right.
All right.
Yes.
See y'all.
Adios, fellas.
Bye.